you know? It's not that we aren't capable of learning how to manage our money, it's the feeling or overcoming the anxiety of trauma that gets the best of us. So for me, I knew I had money trauma when I was having panic attacks paying my bills,
Okay.
you know? And I had to seek professional help for that. But explaining it to my financial coach was very difficult because they don't come from a mental health background. They
Mm,
helped me manage my budget, they helped me talk more about, like, what was happening, but trying to get and because I come from, like, a trauma-informed type of background, I was seeking certain answers or just having certain conversations that this person couldn't have, and the more and more I was working with my clients, I could. So I just started putting 2 and 2 together. I'm like, "Okay, I don't know much about money on this front, but I know a lot about money trauma and
mm.
how that could impact someone's psyche and the body."
What what the hell is money trauma?
So money trauma is really it's very similar or akin to what we know as trauma today. It could either be like little T trauma or big T trauma, but basically I grew up in a household where money just wasn't talked about, but I could see the effects of it
Mhm.
in my household. I knew when my mom was getting paid. I knew when we couldn't make hadn't I knew when we didn't have enough for rent,
Mm,
and that left a certain feeling in me. And through that, I started to pick up on what are the core values in our family when it comes to money. Oh yeah, we can send money to Nicaragua and show off in some way, but we also had to borrow that money from my grandma,
Mm.
you
mm,
know? Or if I needed a new pair of shoes or had to go to the hospital because I was also struggling with my own, stress and my own like mental health stuff, but it was manifesting as like a stomach pain, I was reminded many times like, hey, I spent a lot of money on that. You should really appreciate me, you
mm,
know? Or those shoes, like you don't need new shoes. But if we're in front of like cousins or something, then I'll get you the new shoes. So there's all these things I was putting together, but I wasn't tracing it back to like the money trauma.
Yep.
And that shaped me and that followed me into my adulthood. I can't buy a new pair of shoes without feeling guilty. I can't, I can show off when my friend is visiting, but I'm also shaming myself when I do spend money on myself,
mm.
you know?
Can this also happen with people that have money, like affluent people,
I think if
in a
you're
different way?
Yeah, I think if you're born with money, it's a new type of shame.
Yeah.
Like, depending on one, you have to be aware that,
Mhm.
not many people have the money you have,
Yep.
you know? So there's some folks who like hide their money. I think they call it like stealth wealth type of
Yeah.
thing. Like they look working class
Yep.
and they look like they wear like ratty clothes, but they're not. They actually come from like a comfortable background,
Yep.
you know? But when they're looking for that connection or that camaraderie, they do feel a little shame because it's like, wait, my struggle is not your struggle, but my struggle isn't a struggle at all compared to you.
I've got some clients who are aware of that. That's
Mhm.
not really a struggle, but it's their frugalness. And some of it's like the anxiety and fear of like, hey man, I might need this 30K. I'm like, you got 30K, motherfucker. You need to start paying more for sessions.
Yeah.
Um, but and they know that and they feel bad for other people. But I've had clients, it's just tough. But we're also talking about different classes and socioeconomic status. So right, I mean, you got someone like me, there's a couple ways you can go. But you got a lot of folks that didn't grow with nothing and they like to buy a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
God bless you. Buy whatever you want. Cars, jewelry, clothes. They call it hood rich. Right? Look, I'm gonna
Yeah.
show this off to the whole hood society. If you're not from the hood society, show this off to people. Wealth, keeping up with the Joneses, whatever you want to say. And then you got folks like me that are like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and save all this money. And I'm gonna save it and I'm gonna save it because I'm never gonna be broke again. I'm never gonna worry about rent or food. I'm never gonna be evicted again. I never want to feel
Mhm.
that feeling again. I want to be able to go into the store and if I want it, I buy it.
Yeah.
But I'll perseverate for weeks and months and weeks and months on a purchase. Unless you catch me in one of those modes where I'm opening up the pocketbook and I'm like, fuck it, let it rip. Which rarely happens. But when it does, it does. And this is at a privileged state now because right, I've got a doctorate, good job, house, right, I'm very privileged right now. But still that trauma is always embedded in me where you just wait.
Mhm.
It's a son of a bitch. Uh,
Yeah.
and you never
And we feel
really,
that in the body. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. For me, it's like in the mind. I get that tension headache, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I'll put it in the cart. I'll take it out of the cart. I'll put it in the cart. I'll take it out of the cart. Right? I mean, it's a whole thing. I'll save up. I'll say that I need to do something good, so I earn this thing. There's a lot of shame and guilt in it, and a lot of fear of. I knew what it was. What you were talking about. I want to make sure that the others knew what it was, because I'm not really sure statistically in the demographics of the pod when it comes to economic status. I know all the other stats on race, gender, sexuality, but not that one stat. Thank you for answering that.
Yep.
I
What
think
else
we're
you
ready
got?
to get into the movie.
Let's do it.
Sure. Let's do this.
Go. All right. So first, actually, let's ask why. What about this movie really kind of talked to you, and what about the book really talked to you as well?
Yeah.
From the movie, I liked that there were 2 Latina protagonists because I don't know if you're aware. All these streaming sites and all the in Hollywood are just taking away things that speak to me. Like, I am not their demographic somehow,
Mm,
Yeah. No.
you know? So any type of representation, I'm like, "Oh, please stick around. Like, I gotta hold on to you."
yeah.
And the fact that there were 2 Latinas who were, like,
Right.
good friends, and it wasn't like this catty, like, mean girl type of stereotype. It's just awesome to me, you know?
Okay. And then what about the book? Was there any differences between the book and the movie, or were they kind of both similar?
I think just the way that John Green writes about the intrusive thinking is
Mhm.
slightly different because I didn't know this at the time when I read it, but he struggles with OCD.
Yep.
Mm,
So he, from his end, was able to put in like I think a little bit of himself in this book compared to of his other writings in the past. Because, yeah, the protagonists are female, but one, he tends to write females a little bit more. But when it comes to this book, I think he kind of like wrote about himself as an adult, and that's never really been done before. All his other writings are he's writing about himself when he's like a teenager
Okay.
or like in middle school. So this
okay.
was like the first time I'm like John Green, like after YouTube fame. It's
Okay.
interesting.
All right.
Maybe there's some healing and he's doing throughout his writings.
hmm
Yeah.
I think so too, and it's showing because I think right now he is. There was a moment where he was still doing the YouTube thing, but he was more involved in like his charities. So you didn't get the sense of like he didn't leave the sphere, but he was taking a step back for a little bit. But now he's kind of coming onto the scene a little bit more, especially with this project.
This is a random question. Why in the hell is it called Turtles All the Way Down?
Oh, there's a scene. It's like a metaphor. So the protagonist meets like she really wants to go to this one college. Like she's like obsessed with this one professor who's talking about like contamination and what the body does and all that stuff. And there's this metaphor that the professor uses on like, so what happens if the universe is rests on the back of a turtle? Yeah.
That yeah, there's that one movie that ends up being that from Disney. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's just this mental exercise will just turtles all the way down. Like no matter what, there's always going to be a turtle that's just balancing the turtle that has the universe type of thing.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
great. Give that image to an autistic person. There you go.
Yeah.
Just lots of turtles.
It's raining turtles.
Hey.
Yeah.
Why do they all know karate?
Are they okay?
No, space turtles. That's the word.
Oh,
Space turtles.
space turtles.
Yeah.
I don't even
Speaking
know.
of turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Go watch the episode.
Go watch the episode that we did. Yes. It's all about feeling
Yes.
like a mutant.
Actually,
Yes.
we have a couple of them because we did the live action movie and the new one. So,
Oh, there you go.
oh,
All right.
there we go.
Yeah, I wondered what that was about. Yeah, let's get into the scenes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, could you give us a little bit of backstory on just, the scene and maybe a little bit on the movie? What's happening? What's going on?
Yeah, so I didn't realize this until we did this. I chose the scenes with the friends.
Uh,
I think other folks would have chosen like the love interest or like maybe even the protagonist when she's in a room. I'm like, no,
Bleh.
let's see the 2 Latinas be friends.
Bleh.
I love
yeah.
that.
There we
So
go.
the first scene is where they're in the canoe and the protagonist is just having Audra is just having like intrusive thoughts, about, the water and if it's going to splash on her and she's going to, get these germs or somehow her body's just going to be contaminated, and it'll lead to death. Cause that's the ultimate fear. Like if something happens, I'm not going to survive it.
Intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this whole movie really just depicts OCD or just intrusive thoughts in a in an interesting way because people just think like, oh yeah, you have a bad thought or intrusive thoughts. Just think of something else. It's like,
Mm.
no, it's just all encompassing. Like there's no moving away from it. There's no distracting from it all the time. It's just it's just there.
Her
You know?
acting in the car scene, that which we'll get to, is magnificent. The angry, the furrowed brow, and then like you could see her like lost in thought and trying to hear and listen. I've been that
Mhm.
person trying to hear and listen, and you're like, shut up. And
It's too loud.
I've almost crashed
Yeah.
a few times. My dad's just like, you almost killed us. Good job, asshole. Good job. I thought it was really good on the visuals that it gives you, because it goes to, all right, here's the thought, or you hear the narration in her brain, and then boom,
Mhm.
visual, thought, visual, and how in sync they are. I think a lot of people will relate to that specifically.
Yeah. And how mindfulness or breathing doesn't always work, because how you're fighting against your own brain. I remember a professor or a supervisor once said, having OCD is like having a war in your mind.
It is.
That's really how it is.
It really is. So that first scene, right? They're cruising on the boat, and right, some stuff's happening, right? And her brain, she's starting to lose it. I want to talk about if you've had any clients that have had OCD, and how have you helped them manage it.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Check out the full episode on our channel and anywhere you find podcasts. Also, remember to like and subscribe. Whoop whoop!